And we're live. Today we're going to be predicting every fight to make after UFC 311, Makhachev versus Moicano. And we're going to start off with Islam Makhachev. We were told that Arman Tsarukyan would not be given an immediate title shot right after this event. And it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We're not really sure what happened. Was he really injured? Did he fake it? Maybe he was going to pop for PEDs. I've also heard he didn't think that he was going to make the weight and just use that as an excuse because, you know, of course, he's not going to be given an immediate title shot or probably title shot ever again if he misses weight. That's probably more than likely what happened. He realized he wasn't going to make weight, and so he made that story up. That's just according to some sources I found online. That's the only fight that everybody wants to see at lightweight, and so, you know, to some degree, I understand it's good to keep the fighters in check for pulling out last minute, but, you know, if Arman Tsarukyan doesn't fight next, who is? We were told Charles Oliveira would fight for the lightweight belt next. We've already seen that, so I think Islam deserves a matchup he hasn't had before. Hooker versus Gaethje coming up next at UFC 313. That could be potentially interesting. Islam has never fought Gaethje before, but Gaethje's coming off of a loss. Islam has fought Dan Hooker before. Dan Hooker's only on a 3-fight win streak. A big win against Justin Gaethje is all he needs to warrant a title conversation. We could find a way to get Arman Tsarukyan back in the title shot position if he rematches Oliveira. You know, we already saw that too. It was only over 3 rounds. We could potentially see a 5-round fight. I would be down to see that. We also have Max Holloway in the division. I think it'd be pretty entertaining to see a BMF title eliminator bout with Holloway and Charles Oliveira. But at the end of the day, Max Holloway's coming off of a loss against Ilias. We need to see Arman Tsarukyan again. Who cares? Just rebook him. Hopefully he'll get down to weight. I think a win over Arman Tsarukyan would answer any bit of doubt that anybody could possibly have about Islam Makhachev. It's the only thing left for Islam Makhachev at lightweight. After that, the only thing left for Islam Makhachev is welterweight gold. And, you know, obviously welterweight's jammed up right now. I predict we're not going to even see that in 2025. But I'm not going to suggest pushing Islam Makhachev out till, you know, end of the year. No, we need to see him back in this summer. Also, Islam's dropped hints about being interested in fighting for the middleweight belt. We won't see this, but I'm definitely interested in seeing it. I'm 100% making a video about this tomorrow. You know, what if Islam fought for the middleweight belt? That's a conversation for another day. My answer is still Arman Tsarukyan. I'm still going to say Arman Tsarukyan. I think Arman Tsarukyan should be the guy. Let's just do it. We're going to run it back ASAP, and we're going to see if he can possibly make an April turnaround or something like that. I initially thought that Dana White was bluffing when he said that Arman Tsarukyan would not get the next title shot and he'd be back to the drawing board. It's a great way to build interest back up, you know, temporarily take something away, makes us want it more. Next up, we got Renato Moicano, and this one's not even hard. I know people were talking all about matching Renato Moicano up with Beneil Dariush, but, you know, I don't care. I'm not even interested in that anymore. That's old news. And Beneil Dariush mentioned in an interview with the Shimo that he wants a top 5 guy. I think he deserves it. And we also have an interesting matchup rumored between Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett. I think if that happens, you know, give Renato Moicano the winner of that, and I think it's going to be Paddy Pimblett. And whether or not we see that matchup doesn't matter. Paddy Pimblett, let's do it. That's what everybody wants to see. That's my pick. Obviously, they've been beefing on X, going back and forth based off of Moicano's loss to Islam Makhachev, and I wouldn't be opposed to seeing this happen in like a couple months. But speaking of Beneil Dariush, because I want to backtrack a little bit, I think he's got every right to be in this video, and we're going to include him. He was just in an interview with the Shimo, wants a top 5 guy. I think he deserves Dustin Poirier. I think that'll be a great fight. Dustin Poirier has already expressed interest in a matchup with Beneil Dariush, and I want to see it. Let's make it happen. I said I didn't want to see Moicano versus Dariush, but what I meant was I didn't want to see it yet. I think there's a time and place for that, and I think it's probably a little bit down the road. Maybe it's the next fight for Moicano after he fights, like I said, Paddy Pimblett. Dariush had mentioned that upon a loss that he would consider retiring. But here's the thing, I'm not done with Beneil Dariush. I need like at least 3 more fights, man. I need at least 3 more fights, then you can call it quits. Moving on, let's talk about Merab. Merab's basically cleared his division already. There's really nothing left for him here. He's already beat everybody. This guy's a certified GOAT. What do you say? I heard something very interesting come across my desk the other day. John Anik had suggested we see a rematch between Merab and Umar. And, you know, I think Umar's the clear #1 contender at bantamweight. Yeah, he lost to Merab. He broke his hand. And I think maybe he should absolutely not get the title shot. That's the most absurd thing I've heard all of 2025. Are you kidding me? Doesn't get crazier than that. You know it will. I know it will. We're going to hear some commentators say something more absurd than that. There's only 3 names that stand out right now. The first name is Peter Yan. He's only on a 2-fight win streak. His most recent loss was against Merab Dvalishvili, and Merab destroyed him over the course of 5 rounds, like totally 50-45 him. So I'm not going to give him a title shot next. Next person on the list would be Sean O'Malley, right? Sean O'Malley just came off of losing his belt to Merab, and that one actually seems to make the most sense right now, ironically, out of the entire division, and I don't want to see any of it. I want to see Merab Dvalishvili versus Alexandre Pantoja. That's the only fight that's made sense since before UFC 311 had been announced. There's not really any clear contender for Pantoja. Any fighter that he chooses to take, fans will just write off that they were just some random contender in the top 15. Only thing left for them is each other. And truthfully, this may never happen. I think Pantoja might just only be interested in, being the flyweight GOAT and chasing down that status. He probably won't even be interested. So if that's the case, then I say let's put Peter Yan in. But I'm gonna stick with Pantoja on that. Let's talk about Umar Nurmagomedov. We had mentions like Peter Yan, Sean O'Malley, and there's also Davison Figueiredo. Now, we're not gonna give Davison Figueiredo because Davison Figueiredo clearly lost to Peter Yan. Figgy is not beating Umar. Figgy needs to accept a lower fight on the rankings. I would really like to see him fight Henry Cejudo. I don't know why they just went ahead and booked Cejudo against Song. That's the one I want to see. I think it'd be a fun former champ fight. So that matches up Figgy. What about Sean O'Malley? He's not going to fight Sean O'Malley. And the reason is because the UFC should be giving us Sean O'Malley versus, that's right, Corey Sandhagen. That's what I want to see, a fresh matchup. I know a lot of people are saying Peter Yan. And believe me, I want to see that too. But we can make that next. Depending on how the dust settles, we can see that next. Let's see Sean fight Corey. The fight that I want to see for Umar Nurmagomedov is Peter Yan. I think that makes a lot of sense. If Umar is a true number 1 contender at bantamweight, put him against Yan. If Yan can win against Umar Nurmagomedov, he's clearly next up to fight for the title after Pantoja. And at that point, he's on a 3-fight win streak. He's got some good names on his record between Figgy, Umar, and Song. So there you go. Moving on, let's talk about Yuri Prochazka. He looked great against Jamal Hill. He's still clearly a top contender at light heavyweight. And I think I'd be really interested if he fought Jan Blachowicz. Either by win or close decision loss against Olberg. Olberg is not going to be clapping the lights out of the Jan. Besides, if Olberg wins, the UFC is going to put him up in a title shot right away. You can mark my word on that. After that, I think Yuri's one more fight away from a possible Pereira trilogy. And I say then we could match him up with like Khalil Roundtree. I think at that point in time, Khalil will have already taken a first fight back, and then he could be ready to fight Yuri. But after that, let's see a Pereira trilogy. Maybe, if Pereira does lose to Ankalaev, then we're 100% set for that. Next up, we got Jamal Hill. What can we do for Jamal Hill? We got to save this guy's career. 2 KO losses back-to-back after a long layoff from a torn Achilles. And I just don't think he's been the same ever since. I think he really did look great against Yuri Prochazka. Was that the best Jamal Hill? No. I know that for sure. My fear is we give Jamal Hill a matchup slightly lower in the rankings, someone very dangerous, and a fight that would be very entertaining, and that would be Khalil Roundtree. And we're not going to do that. We're going to put him up against Nikita Krylov. I know some of you guys are going to think that that's ridiculous, because where's Krylov? He's non-existent. I say, okay, Krylov doesn't show up, then we're going to put him against Rakic. We'll put him against Rakic. But I don't want to see Jamal Hill against a deadly striker at light heavyweight. Let's put him against Krylov. If he loses to Krylov, it'll be like by sub. But I did put my feelers out there in Instagram comments. Seems like a lot of fans resonate with Krylov. I think it just makes a lot of sense. They both took some time off. I don't really count the fight at UFC 300. It wasn't substantial. He fought for 2 minutes, and they were just standing there until he got KO'd. I mean, Krylov's ranked 8. It's not too far-fetched. He's on a 6-fight win streak right now. And I think he deserves a fight up the rankings with the top 5 guy that's maybe down on his luck. And he probably will get starched by Hill, but that's the name of the game at light heavyweight. Anything could really happen in a fight. And I know it also can look like I'm possibly doing Jamal Hill like the UFC did Jared Cannonier, but that's not going to happen to Jamal. Let's switch gears here. We're going to talk about Gelton Almeida, and this one's pretty obvious. We want to see Almeida versus Cyril Gane. He just called Gane out, and it makes sense. Let's see it. If Almeida wins, he's basically set up for a title shot. And then there's Sergey Spivak, right? Really tough to see him lose to Almeida so quickly. But you know what? We have Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik fighting in Saudi Arabia in just 2 weeks. I think Spivak should fight the loser of that. You know, I really like that matchup in general, and Spivak hasn't fought either of those guys. I think we should definitely see a Sergey versus Sergey fight. Dude, it just rolls off the tongue real smooth. Obviously, Pavlovich would have to lose, or else that doesn't make sense at all. But I'm going to say the loser between Pavlovich and Rosenstrike, and I guess if Pavlovich doesn't lose, then set him up with Rosenstrike. But last but not least, let's talk about Reiner de Ritter. Now, I'm totally going to skip over Kevin Holland, because I don't care for giving a matchup for him. He could possibly fight Chris Curtis or like Brad Tavares. I think Reiner de Ritter does deserve a ranked opponent next. He absolutely dominated Kevin Holland. And at middleweight, the one that sticks out to me is Jack Hermanson. You know, I know I mentioned Brendan Allen or like Michael Venom Page if he won against Shara Bullet, but we don't even know if MVP will win, and if he does win, we don't even know if he will move up permanently to middleweight. Also, Brendan Allen, he's just too far up the rankings. He's number 9. He's scheduled to fight Fluffy Hernandez. So I'm all for speedrunning RDR, but not that quickly. I say we give him Jack Hermanson, and then maybe down the road we can give him Brendan Allen or like throw him in delete, say, but that one just makes too much sense. So we're going to say Jack Hermanson. That being said, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have any better suggestions? Go ahead and change my mind. That's the video for today, guys. Please make sure to like the video, and remember to subscribe if you want to see more UFC content from yours truly, Noah with Youngblood MMA. And thank you guys so much for watching.